Welcome back to our Beatrice YouTube channel. Today's class we'll learn how to make this beautiful short with band and pockets. It has an elastic at the back. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. This is something you like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So to make this short, I'm going to be working with this Ankara fabric, and the measurement you need is around 1 yard or so, depending on your size. 1 or 1.5 yards should be fine because it's not too long. So the total length of this short is going to be around 16 inches, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for seam allowance, so I'm going to make it 17 inches. So that's what I'm measuring out now. I'm measuring out 17 inches for my total length. That's how long the short is going to be. So I'm going to make that into a straight line. I hope my chalk is visible enough. Okay, so I'm marking this out, and then the fabric is on fold, and then the measurement that you're going to need to put this fabric on fold is your thigh measurement. Okay, so you measure the fullest part of your thigh, round the fullest part. For me, that's 28 inches. So because this fabric is put on fold, I'm going to divide that 28 inches into 2, and whatever I have is what I'm going to use to fold my fabric. So 28 divided by 2 is going to give me 14 inches. So now I have a fabric of 14 inches by 17 inches, which the 17 inches is my full length for the short. So now I'm just going to cut this out so that we'll have something smaller to work with. I have 14 inches by 17 inches here, like I said, and I explained I was able to get that measurement. So I have that measurement now, and then I'm going to take my scissors to cut this out. So we are cutting the front first, then after cutting the front, we're going to use the front to cut out the back. So it's that simple. Okay, so I have this to work with. I'm going to keep the rest of my fabric. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to start taking my measurement. So this is my starting point, and it's also going to double as my waistline. So because I'm not going to add a zipper to this, I'm going to use elastic at the back, so the waist cannot be my exact waist measurement, so that I can wear it easily. So I'm going to use my hip measurement for my waist also. The hip measurement that I'm working with is 46 inches. 46 divided by 4 is going to give me 11.5. So I'm going to measure the 11.5, and you know, of course, this is the front, so we're not going to be adding any allowance to the front. All our allowances will be added at the back. So now next thing I'm going to measure is my crotch. Okay, so the crotch is where is also known as the seat. I'm going to attach a picture to this, but I've done several trousers on the channel already, so by now I'm sure we know how to measure your crotch. But if you don't know how to measure your crotch, just sit on a flat surface, and then you measure from you put your tape measure on your waist, and then you place it on that flat surface. So whatever it is that you have there is your crotch. So for me, the crotch I'm working with is 11 inches from my waistline. So I'm adding, so it's a bit of like an high waist a bit. So because I'm adding 2 inches, but ideally if it's going to sit on exact, so when you're measuring this, you have to know where you want to place your trouser. So where you're placing your trouser, you can just tie a rope there. That's where you're going to place your tape when you're measuring it. So if you're adding a band to this, you can just remove the band before you measure your trouser. But because I want it a bit high, and the band I'm going to add is just going to be around 1 or 1.5 inches, so I'm taking my crotch measurement exactly on this point that I have here, and that's 11 inches for me. So I'm marking out my 11 inches, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line. Okay, so this is my 11 inches mark here. So the next thing now is to mark my hip measurements on that crotch area also. So the hip measurement that I took here, which is 11.5, I'm going to mark the 11.5 inches here also, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line so that I can draw out my crotch curve. Okay, so that is what I have. The next thing now is for me to link my crotch here, crotch curve. So you can use your free hand here, or you can just use a cuff. So I want this to be as simple as possible, so I'm just trying to use my free hand, and that is all I need to do. So here you can measure around your thigh where you want this to be, so that you can use that to shape it, or you can just leave it like this. But here I'm just going to shape it a bit by just going inwards by 1.5 inches here, and then I'm going to connect it to where my crotch stops, which is here, and then from there I'm going to cut out my crotch curve. So of course this out now. This is the front. The next thing now is to bring in my fabric again, and then place it on, fold it into two, and then place the front on it so that I can cut out the back. So my fabric is folded into two, and I've placed the front on the back. So let me just turn this to the right side. Maybe we can see the difference between the two fabrics very well. Okay, so now this is my front pattern on the back pattern. So I have few allowances towards the center part. Remember, this is the side and we've not opened it yet. So to accommodate the bum at the back, the first thing I'm going to do now is to extend my crotch. So I'll come here to where I have my crotch, which is here, and then I'm going to extend this crotch by 3 inches. You can do 2.5 or 3 inches depending on how big the person is. So I'm extending this by 3 inches. You can see me placing my ruler here and extending that line. So I'll make sure that I have up to 3 inches. So along this line, the crotch line also, I'm going to add allowance of 2 inches. Okay, so I'm adding 2 inches, and then I'm going to connect it to my new crotch line. So like I said, you can use your free hand for this, or you can use a cuff. Just make sure that you get something smooth like this. So along the leg area also, I'm going to add an allowance of 2 inches on that part also, and then I'm going to connect it to my crotch. You can do 1.5 if you don't want it. If you want it really tight, but 2 inches is fine. So I'm going to connect it like that. So the last thing now is to add my bum rest. So this bum rest is important so that your bum can sit well in your trouser. So on where I have my waistline here, which is this place, I'm going to go up by 2 inches for my bum rest. So now I'm going to extend this line that I have here. I hope this is feasible. Just watch what I'm doing. So I've extended that line, and then the next thing is for me to connect that line from here to where my waistline stops here. Remember, we're going to sew it together on this side, so they have to match. So those are the few modifications that I'm going to do to the back. And after this, I'm just going to cut this out so that we can see what we have done so far. So that's the slant that we have on the waist for the back, and this is the new crotch line that I have for the back also. Okay, so this is what we have. This is our front and this is our back. So for the front also, I like to shape my front by 3/4 of an inch at the center part. So here, this center part, I'm just going to measure like 3/4 or 1 inch downwards. Gives your trouser more fitting at the front, at the center front area. And then I'm going to connect that also to the side. The side has to be equal. Okay, so I'm connecting that to the side, and then I'm going to trim it up. Okay, so now after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to add that to my trouser. Remember, we did not use our exact waist measurements for the front, so that is especially important for the front so that it can be a bit firm. You don't want it packing. So here from my center front. Remember this place where we have our crotch is the center front. I'm going to use my bust span measurements to create my dart. So my bust span is 9 inches. Divided by 2 is going to give me 4.5. So I have 4.5 inches here, and then the dart is going to be around 5 inches long. 5 inches. So from there I'm going to mark 5 inches, and then I'm going to make that into a straight line and take a dart of 1/2 inch on both sides. So this is not going to create any shortage because we did not use our actual waist measurement, so we have excess on our waistline already. So here I'm marking out my dart for my front. You can also include this for your back, so you can just extend the lines for the back also, so that you know where the dart is going to sit. Sorry, I'm using this chalk. This is the chalk I can't find. So this is my dart line. Now I'm going to set the back aside and then work on the front, but before then I'm going to open the side of the back also. Remember, we have not opened the side. Okay, so now I've opened this. This is my back and this is the front. So for the front, I want it to have a pocket. So my pocket is going to be around 7 inches long. So from my waist on the side here, I'm going to mark where my pocket is going to stop, and then on the upper part of the waistline here, ideally I use 2 inches for my slant pocket, but because this waist here that we have is bigger than our actual waist measurement, so I'm going to use like 3 inches to 3.5 inches, or even 4. So I'm just using 3 inches, 3.5 inches here, and then I'm going to mark it. So I mark 3.5 inches here and then 7 inches downwards. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect it so that I can have that slant line. So after connecting it, I'm going to cut this out, and that's going to be the slant for my pocket. Okay, so this is my pocket. Now I can open my side for the front also. So this is what the front looks like. So the next thing now is for us to cut out this pocket for the front. So for the trouser, I have a fabric, and for the pocket I have the fabric that I want to use for my pocket here, and the measurement that I used here, I just used my leftover fabric. If you want it longer, you can increase it. The length here is 12 inches, and then the width on fold, you can see that it's on fold, this is around 7 inches. Okay, so now to shape out this slant that we have on our trouser, to shape this out on the pocket, I'm just going to simply place this on my pocket and make sure that this side matches the side of my pocket. And once they match like this, I'm going to trim off what I have there on just one. Okay, so you can see me raising it up like this. So I'm going to trim it off on one side like this, and then the other side is going to be like this. So this is what the pocket is looking like, you can see on one side. So I'm going to use this to cut out the other side of the other pocket. So to cut this now, I'm going to place it right side facing right side, so that it's going to correspond to the side that I want it to be. So I'm gonna have to cut the other pockets, and like I said, I place them right side facing right side so that I can have this slant corresponding to the side that I want. So the next thing we're going to do now is to move straight to sewing this. So to sew this, I'm going to sew the crotch for the front and back, and then I'm going to hold my dart. So now you place it like this and then sew on your crotch. So after sewing the crotch, I'm going to fix the pocket. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew my crotch like I said, and then I've gone ahead to fix one of the pockets. So now we're going to fix the other pocket. So I've moved this to the sewing machine. So to sew the pockets, remember this is our full trouser and this is the pockets that we have cut. So the slanted parts, you're going to match them against each other, right side facing the right side, and then I'm just going to match it up now and then go over to the machine to just sew it straight like this. So I'm going to sew it as you are seeing. So it is sewn together now you can actually notch it on this side so that it can relax well, and then you can just bend this towards the lining, towards the pocket part, if you don't want seams to be showing on your main trouser. So you can bend your seam allowance towards the pocket side and then top stitch on it so that it can relax well. So after doing that, the next thing now is to fold it inwards like this. Fold the pocket inwards and then match the pocket on the hem. On this hem, you are just going to match them so that they can match each other like this. So this is what the pocket is going to look like. Once they match on the hemline, you arrange it well on the upper part also. So you're going to see your V shape showing, so you can see the V. Okay, so after arranging it, you can see that you can just put your hand inwards here, but we are not done because this is still opened. So to close this part off now, this hem, you can either sew it like this and sew it close if you don't mind seeing these rough edges. But if you don't want to see the rough edge, what you just need to do now is to take this and flip it like this so that you can sew it and then conceal it like what we have here. You can see that the pocket here, you can see the inside, that it is clean on the inside. The seam allowance is inside towards where our pocket is going to be. That's where we have our seam allowance. So to do that also, remember your pocket is just like this. Okay, it's sitting on top of each other like this. So because we want to tuck the rough edges in, I'm just going to flip it over like this and then sew it from the side. That's where your slanting V stops. You're going to sew it like this all the way to the hem. So you can sew it in a sharp form like this, or you can just slant it. Whichever style you want to work with is okay. So I'm just going to go ahead now and sew it like this. So I'm sewing this now. So after sewing it now, what I just need to do now is to turn it out. So you can see me dipping my hand inwards and then I'm going to turn it out. So turning it out means that all the rough edges is now inwards. So you can just top stitch on it round like this, and this is what the pocket is looking like now. So when we arrange it, you can see our pocket is here, and then I'm simply going to bring it behind my actual trouser, and this is what it looks like now. So now when you dip your hand inwards, the pocket has been completely closed, so you can see that nothing is going to come out from the pocket. So now the next thing is for you to just arrange it well, and then you can sew it on this part so that you can hold it together, or you can just hold it with a pin pending the time you're going to fix your band to it. Whichever one is fine, but I just like to hold it down. Then I'm going to trim off this excess. Remember, we have this excess on the upper part because we trimmed our center front. So we trimmed the front by 1 inch. That's why we have this excess. So by the time I hold this down, I'm going to trim it off. Okay, so now this is what the pocket is looking like. The two pockets is fixed, and this is our front. You can see what it looks like, and this is the back. I've gone ahead to sew the back also on the crotch, and then I held my dart, and like I said, the dart is not compulsory. You can just leave it as it is. So now for the band, I've gone ahead to cut out a band of 2 inches on fold, and then I went ahead to iron it half an inch on both sides like this. So you're supposed to add interfacing for the one in front especially, but I don't have an interfacing, so that's why I just ironed it like this. So now I'm going to bring in my short for the front. I'm adding the band separately. You can also add it together. I have a tutorial on that already on the channel, so I just want to do something different with this. I'm going to add the band of the front and back separately, and remember, we're going to be fixing an elastic to the back. So now I'm just simply going to place this like this, and then I'm going to fix my trouser in between the band like this, and then I'll sew it down. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and do this for the front and the back, and then I'll bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so the band is fixed now. The next thing I'm going to do is to sew it on the under area. So I'm going to match the crotch together and then sew and then on the side also I'm going to match the side together and sew. Then I'm going to stop sewing around the band area so that I can show us how to fix how I'm going to fix my elastic. So I'll go back to the machine and sew the crotch, and then I'm going to sew it on the side. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it on the crotch, and also I've sewn it on the side up to the band area. So for the back now, I have my elastic, so I'm just going to pass the elastic through this space that I have on the band, and then I'm going to hold it down here. Also I'm going to hold this down here. So this is what the elastic is going to do. It's going to adjust the size for me. Then after passing the elastic to the back, I'm going to take the band together and sew it off completely, and the trouser is ready. Okay, so now I've attached the band, and you can see the front of the band. You can see how flat the front is looking, and this is the back with the elastic. Okay, to adjust it. So this is what the short looks like now. Then I'm going to put it on the mannequin. This is the pockets, the two pockets that we have there, and I'll hang this on the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the short is looking like now. You can see the band, and this is the pocket here. Okay, so this does not have any zipper because there's an elastic there, and you can see the dart that we placed on the front helps control the excess that we have there. Remember, we used our width measurements for the waistline also to accommodate the elastic that we're going to put. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.